Okay, welcome to this deep dive. We've got this stack of sources you sent over, articles, research, your notes, all tackling this really big question. Is social media actually, programming us?
It really is the big question, isn't it? Because we're not just like idly scrolling. We're interacting constantly with these incredibly complex systems. Your material forces us to unpack what's really going on behind that daily scroll.
Yeah, absolutely. And our mission today, really digging into these specific sources, is to figure out how these platforms might be shaping our thoughts, maybe nudging our decisions, perhaps even changing what we fundamentally believe.
And it's huge when you think about the scale. The sources point out over 4.8 billion users globally. That's a massive chunk of humanity.
Right.
Social media is just this central, incredibly powerful force now. And, well, your sources are pretty blunt about suggesting that power comes with a real potential for manipulation.
Definitely. So we're going to pull out what really jumped out from this material, highlight some of the maybe surprising insights, and try to get to the core truth of what these platforms we use every single day are actually doing. Let's dive in.
Okay, so maybe let's start with how this whole thing evolved. Based on the timelines and descriptions in your material, it started out pretty simple, didn't it?
Oh, yeah, totally. Back then, it really felt like just a tool,
Yeah,
Connect with friends, share an update.
you're right, poke someone.
Yeah.
But the sources you provided, they track this really significant shift. Companies like Meta, that's Facebook, Instagram, Google with YouTube, ByteDance running TikTok, they didn't just add features, they started actively engineering the experience.
Engineering the experience,
Yeah.
and not just to make connecting easier, right?
Yeah,
It became about influencing our behavior.
exactly. From what we buy to how we view political stuff, even how we feel about ourselves.
Mhm.
And what's really striking across all this material is the argument that social media isn't just holding up a mirror to society anymore.
It's shaping it.
It's actively shaping it
Yeah.
in real time.
And the scale of that,
Yeah.
these aren't just passive websites. Your sources keep hammering this point. Companies like Meta, Google, ByteDance, they're not just hosting content. They are intensely, deliberately engineering engagement,
Their main goal is keeping you scrolling, clicking, reacting, whatever it takes.
which naturally brings us to the engine behind all that, the algorithms.
Ah, yes, the algorithms. We hear that word all the time, but looking through your sources, they seem way more complex than just a simple set of rules.
Oh, much more. The material describes them less like static code and more like complex learning machines. And they're constantly learning from you.
So everything I do online, videos I watch, how long I pause on a post, whether I like something, share it, comment, all of it, exactly, every single interaction. Even how long you don't interact, like pausing on something, it's all data.
Right.
And that data gets fed back into these machines, constantly refining this incredibly detailed digital profile they have of your habits, your preferences, your likely reactions.
And that profile isn't just for showing me more cat videos because I liked one cat video.
No, that's where these behavioral prediction models come in. Your sources describe how they use AI, machine learning, to go beyond just reacting to what you've liked in the past.
Okay.
They start predicting what you're most likely to engage with next, what products you might think about buying, even predicting opinions you might be open to adopting down the line.
Wow. So they're not just reflecting my interests back at me. They're actively trying to guess what will keep me hooked and maybe even influence what I think or do next.
That's the really critical insight that comes through again and again in your sources. The algorithm isn't showing you the full, unbiased picture of the world or even all the content available.
It's showing me its version.
Exactly, a carefully curated version specifically designed for maximum engagement from you.
And that drive for maximum engagement,
Okay.
it seems like it taps right into the science of addiction. Why is it sometimes just so hard to put the phone down?
Well, it really boils down to that instant gratification loop, doesn't it? That little dopamine hit you get from a like, a comment, a notification.
Yeah, that little buzz.
It feels good. It's a reward signal in your brain.
Oh, okay.
And one of the studies in your stack, it makes this really striking comparison. It talks about how the brain's reward pathways activated by social media look surprisingly similar to those activated by, say, certain addictive drugs.
Wow, that's a pretty heavy comparison to find in the research.
It is, and the sources suggest this can lead to patterns that look a lot like dependence, maybe even withdrawal symptoms if you cut back suddenly. And like other addictive things, you can build up a tolerance.
Meaning you need more and more engagement to get the same feeling.
Right, you need more likes, more comments, more scrolling time. The material is pretty clear on this point. Social media platforms are designed to be addictive.
Okay, so if they're designed to be addictive and predict our behavior, it makes you wonder, are we really in control of what we see? Or is it just what the platform wants us to see?
Well, the idea that you have complete control based on your sources seems to be largely an illusion. Yes, your past clicks and likes influence things, but the algorithms prioritize content based on other factors too. Hidden factors.
Like what? What are their factors?
The material points to things like profit potential, content that might lead you to buy something or to see more ads.
Right.
And also things that just maximize your time on the platform. That often means controversial stuff, emotionally charged content, because that stuff really grabs attention.
So my feed is curated not just for me, but for their bottom line.
Exactly. It's designed to maximize platform revenue and those all-important engagement metrics.
And this kind of curation, this leads to what people call echo chambers.
Precisely. Because the algorithm keeps showing you more of what it thinks you'll engage with, it naturally reinforces your existing views.
So if I lean a certain way politically, I just see more and more content confirming that view.
That's generally how it works, yeah. Content that aligns with your beliefs gets amplified, and stuff from opposing viewpoints. It tends to get filtered out or pushed way down your feed. You might not even see it.
So you end up in this bubble where everyone seems to agree with you.
Yes. And your sources really highlight the danger there. It reinforces your beliefs, sometimes pushing them towards more extreme versions, and it drastically limits your exposure to different perspectives.
Which makes it harder to think critically.
Absolutely. And it makes large groups of people potentially more susceptible to manipulation. It's not just about cute animal videos anymore. It's filtering the very information that shapes how we understand the world.
And none of this works, this whole complex system, without the fuel data.
Yeah.
Just massive amounts of our personal data. Which brings us to that term that popped up a lot in your sources, surveillance capitalism. I know Shoshana Zuboff's work is central here.
Right. Surveillance capitalism, it's a key concept.
So how much data are we actually talking about? What are they collecting beyond, my profile info?
Oh, it's immense. The sources detail how they collect not just your basics, but things like your precise location data, really granular search and browsing history even off their platform.
Wait, off the platform too? How?
Through things like tracking pixels on websites, cookies, they follow you around the web. Plus, details about who your friends are, what you buy online, even biometric data like facial recognition analysis from photos and videos you interact with.
So every single click, every scroll, even pausing on a picture, it's all building this detailed profile.
Absolutely. Every action, or even inaction like lingering on an ad, adds another tiny piece to your digital identity. And this data isn't just sitting there, it's the core resource for a whole new kind of economy.
The data itself is the currency.
It is. Your sources lay out the process. Data is collected relentlessly, non-stop. It's analyzed using really sophisticated AI to build these deep psychological profiles of users.
Okay.
And then that profile data, or rather the predictions derived from it, gets sold, often through data brokers to advertisers, political campaigns, potentially even governments.
For incredibly precise targeting. They're not just guessing who might want hiking boots. They know who's been researching trails and looking at outdoor gear ads.
Exactly that level of precision. It's a massive, multi-billion-dollar industry. This whole era, what Zuboff calls the age of surveillance capitalism, it's defined by extracting and selling predictions about our future behavior.
Okay, shifting from the kind of economic and political side, your sources also really dig into the impact on us personally, our well-being, specifically mental health.
Yeah, this is a really significant concern that comes through loud and clear in the research you shared. There are definite links being drawn between heavy social media use and higher rates of anxiety, depression.
Affecting teens and adults.
Both, yeah. And low self-esteem comes up a lot, particularly noted as a big issue for young women.
Because you're constantly seeing everyone else's curated perfection, their highlight reel, while you're living your own, messy reality.
Exactly that. That constant comparison, often unconscious, between your real life and these perfect-seeming online lives just creates this cycle of feeling inadequate. And studies mentioned in the material, like from the APA, they indicate that even though these platforms are meant for connection, heavy users often report feeling more lonely and isolated.
That feels so backwards, doesn't it?
It really does. And you see the reaction to this, right? The growing awareness is fueling things like the digital detox movement, people going on retreats, using screen time apps, trying to adopt more minimalist digital habits.
Trying to get some time and mental space back.
Yeah, basically reclaiming their focus, their clarity from that endless scroll.
And beyond our personal well-being, there's the impact on how we form beliefs, how we engage with politics.
Where this loops back to the algorithms in those echo chambers we talked about. By pushing content designed purely for engagement, which often means it's controversial or really emotionally charged, and by constantly reinforcing your existing views, the platforms are major contributors to the polarization we see in society.
So if I already lean a certain way politically, the algorithm is likely to feed me more and more extreme stuff within that viewpoint and basically hide everything else.
That's a core mechanism the sources describe, yes. They highlight how these platforms become really fertile ground for political propaganda, for spreading disinformation, and for these sophisticated campaigns trying to sway public opinion and even elections.
How do they do that?
Through highly targeted messaging informed by all that data they have, designed to hit specific psychological triggers.
We all heard about Cambridge Analytica a few years back. That seemed like a big deal.
It was, but the material you gathered suggests that Cambridge Analytica, while notorious, was maybe just the tip of the iceberg. It was a public peek at tactics that are likely much more widespread and are constantly getting more sophisticated.
So the line between real news and deliberate manipulation is just getting blurrier and blurrier.
It really is, because the system itself often rewards content that gets a reaction, whether it's true or not. Engagement trumps truth sometimes.
Okay, speaking of curated realities, let's talk about influencer culture. That's another big area your sources explore.
Ah, yes, the world of apparently effortless perfection. The sources really break down how influencer culture often presents this ideal lifestyle.
It's amazing, right?
Totally. But the reality behind it, as the material shows, involves heavily edited photos, meticulously staged candid moments. Genuine unscripted stuff is actually pretty rare.
Which must set these completely unrealistic standards for everyone else watching.
Absolutely. Your sources link it directly to fueling insecurity, driving materialism, and that sort of imposter syndrome, feeling like you're not measuring up. What looks like a real life is often just a very carefully managed brand.
And a big business behind that brand.
Whoa, a massive business. The material points out how often influencers are paid to promote products they might not even use or like.
Really?
Yeah, and there's often a lack of clear disclosure about sponsorships. Their main driver, because of how the platform algorithms work, is just maintaining visibility, keeping engagement high.
So a lot of what looks like a genuine recommendation or connection is basically just commerce dressed up as community.
That's a really good way to put it, and it's a key takeaway from your sources. It's often less about authentic sharing and more about leveraging that curated persona to sell something, a product, an idea, a certain worldview.
And this whole powerful, addictive, curated commercial system, it's now hitting a generation at a really critical stage. Kids, starting really young.
Yeah, your sources mention kids accessing platforms as young as 8 years old.
8. Wow. That feels incredibly early to be navigating all this complexity.
It is, and the potential downsides detailed in the research are pretty serious. Concerns about shortening attention spans because of the constant stimulation,
Right.
increased cyberbullying, exposure to harmful or inappropriate content, and just the basic fact that these platforms are actively shaping brains while they're still developing.
So what's the defense? How do we help young users navigate this?
Your sources really hammer home the need for digital literacy. They call it the new critical thinking.
Okay.
The focus has to be on teaching young people to question what they see online, to understand how these platforms actually work, how the algorithms are designed to keep them hooked, and why it's important to set limits on screen time.
So they understand the mechanics behind it instead of just being passive consumers.
Exactly. And based on the experts cited in your material, the general recommendation seems to be delaying access to social media until at least 13, if possible, and even then, having ongoing conversations and monitoring.
Okay, so let's try and pull together some of the main threads, the key points that really stood out from this whole stack of sources. First, algorithms are definitely not neutral.
Right. They're explicitly designed to prioritize engagement, often way above accuracy or truthfulness.
And trying to fully protect your data is, well, it's almost impossible because the collection is just so baked into the whole business model.
It really is. It's the foundation.
And the mental health impact is clear, undeniable. Strategies like setting limits, consciously curating your feed, they seem crucial.
Definitely. And the way algorithms reinforce what you already believe absolutely fuels political polarization. It makes these platforms incredibly powerful tools for influence, even manipulation.
And maybe the most fundamental point, the research confirms these platforms are designed to be addictive. They use psychological tricks like the likes, the infinite scroll, specifically to keep us glued.
Yeah, it's not an accident. It's very intentional engineering.
So, wrapping up this deep dive based on your sources, social media is undeniably this incredibly powerful force. Huge potential for good, for connection, sure, but also immense potential for manipulation. And based on everything laid out here, yeah, we are absolutely being influenced, shaped,
Yeah.
maybe even programmed.
But importantly, your sources also hint at agency, right? Understanding how it all works. That's the crucial first step to pushing back. We can try to take more conscious control of our data where possible. We can educate ourselves, educate others about these mechanisms. And yeah, we can collectively push for more transparency, more regulation from the platforms and governments.
So the power isn't entirely stacked against us.
Not entirely, no. Maybe consider this final thought, drawing from the material. What's the real difference between just scrolling passively, letting the algorithm dictate what you see and feel, versus scrolling consciously? Scrolling armed with the knowledge of how this system is built.
It changes everything about how you interact with your feed.
Right. It puts the choice, or at least more of it, back in your hands. Are you just letting the platform program you? Or are you deciding how, and even if you engage with it, more on your own terms? That's really the question this deep dive leaves us wrestling with.